Welcome back to the Backyard Horse Enthusiast. Today, we have a truly inspiring guest, Valerie McCloskey, a passionate horse trainer, teacher, and international rider who brings a holistic approach to building confidence and balance in both horses and riders. From Groundwork to Grand Prix, Valerie has done it all. Her unique perspective as a saddle fitter and trainer offers invaluable insight into creating a willing, confident partnership with your horse. Whether you're a backyard horse enthusiast or a seasoned competitor, there's something in this episode for everyone. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired. This episode of the Backyard Horse Enthusiast is brought to you by our generous sponsor, Shagbark Lumber and Farm Supply in East Haddam, Connecticut. For over 4 decades, Shagbark has been your trusted local source for quality horse care products, feed, and farm supplies. Stop by and see why Shagbark is the go-to destination for horse lovers in our community. Shagbark Lumber and Farm Supply, where you can find everything you need for your horses and farm. Now let's dive into today's conversation with Valerie McCloskey. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. Hey, Valerie.
Good morning, Kimberly.
Good morning. Thank you for being a guest on the Backyard Horse Enthusiast. I'm excited to dive into some questions that I have jotted down here to enlighten our viewers on your path, where you've been, where you are. Awesome. With that being said, and I'm going to glance down because they are written down.
Sure.
I don't have a brain that, an X-ray, not anymore. Okay. So I have gleaned that you have trained internationally, including Portugal. You've developed horses from their very first rides all the way to Grand Prix level. What is the biggest difference that you've seen in training philosophies between Europe and the US, and how has that shaped your approach to training?
Great question. So the European method, it works great. They produce so many amazing top horses. The one big thing that I have found, at least in my training and my philosophy through the years, is a lot of us here are now starting with a slower method, a lot of groundwork, a lot of in-hand work, and really just taking time to develop the horse mentally and physically through relaxation before we start the riding process. I think that's just the biggest thing. And even the way that I start horses, I will say I used to start it the way pretty much everybody does. Like in Europe, we lunge them a bit, side reins, we mount them. But now my whole process is first from the ground and developing that connection, that relaxation. And then when we ride them, it's almost always uneventful. And the horse, in most cases, in my case, is already understanding the legs, the rein. So it's almost like you jump ahead, months in the training.
Absolutely. Love it. I love it. And I love how you emphasize groundwork and in-hand work as essential components of your training. And for those watching who might not think groundwork is real training, how would you convince them otherwise?
So there's a lot of misconceptions, I think, with groundwork. So I'm not talking like natural horsemanship per se. So we're not doing the round penning and any of that. So the groundwork, for me, it starts first with just a halter, getting the horse acquainted with me being near them. I do a lot of body work, a lot of hands-on, releasing tension with the horse. And then I teach them from the ground just how to move their body. A lot of horses as humans, are very stuck. I find especially in their shoulders. We hear a lot about the hind legs and the hind end, and I agree 100%. But I think now people are being more aware of the sling muscles, the shoulders, the withers, and all of that. So doing this very focused groundwork, which isn't lunging, round penning, chasing. It's just very much, think of it as horse yoga, horse Pilates. And that's how I do the groundwork.
Thank you. Now we'll jump to saddle fitting. It's a science in and of itself. And you bring a very unique perspective as both a trainer and a saddle fitter.
Mm-hmm.
how do you balance finding the right saddle fit while also considering the rider's needs and goals?
Right. So that's incredibly important. So I always tell my clients we fit the bottom of the saddle to the horse, but it's equally important that the rider is fit and that the rider is comfortable. A lot of saddles might feel great to the horse, but it might put the rider behind the motion in the back seat. We know a lot of us can be quite tight in our pelvis and our hip area, so finding the right flap, and oftentimes the bigger blocks are contributing to more problems for us as riders and our suppleness. So my fitting process, it takes about an hour and a half, and a big part of this is watching the horse ridden and watching the rider and doing the things. So, if it's a jumping horse, I need to see it do the flat work and the jumping. If it's an upper level, lower level dressage horse, trail horse, I need to see the rider and the horse doing all the things that they do. Then I can glean a lot of information. Is it the horse, shifting the rider? Is the rider uncomfortable in the saddle? Are there things that we can do to help if the saddle basically fits, or are we looking at doing something completely different for both?
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And you work across multiple disciplines.
Yes.
Western, English, eventing, dressage. Do you find there's a common misunderstanding or myth that riders across all of these disciplines have about horse training that you constantly need to correct?
I do. So one of the things I tell people is the horse doesn't care, as long as the saddle fits what saddle he's wearing. Meaning, is it a Western saddle, a jumping saddle, dressage saddle? So for me, no matter what the horse is, my training methodology and philosophy is the same with the groundwork, because we want to instill the basics, the relaxation, and the suppleness. And all of the training eventually at some point for sure will diverge. An upper level dressage horse is going to do something different than maybe a jumping horse. But the basic dressage up to the lateral work is meant to strengthen, supple the horse, mentally relax the horse. So whether I'm doing a Western ranch horse, we're still going to put some basic dressage movements in, leg yield, turn on the haunches. A Western horse will do turn on the forehand, think about going and opening fences. Same thing with a jumping horse. The reason they have dressage in eventing is to make the horse more rideable and supple for the cross-country phase, which is quite challenging.
Mm-hmm. Your focus on balance and confidence really stands out. How do you bring a horse back to balance, both physically and mentally, when you're working with one that's been mishandled or poorly trained?
Yeah, another great question. So my career started, as most of us, riding the unrideable, the ones that were, going to go to auction. A lot of times, just basic steps were missed or the horse is misunderstood. So again, for me, no matter what the horse does, I don't rely on bits or anything. So just a couple years ago, I had a horse that bolted. So first thing I did was groundwork back to basics. And the horse was just had been overfaced too early on. And that does happen sometimes, and it just wasn't caught. It was a young gal, and she didn't realize it. So doing the groundwork, the basic work, and then I just put her, once I felt like she was relaxed, in a snaffle. And the first couple of rides, she was a little bit, shall we say, a little forward. So I just closed my leg. We were in an indoor arena and just let her kind of canter around. And she eventually just slowed right down and ended up being an amazing horse. And there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but you're going to hear me say this a lot. Back to basics, back to basics, back to basics.
Mm-hmm. I'm finding this to be a common with more and more of the trainers, clinicians, horsemen that I've been interviewing, that I hear that they're like, we go back to preschool and,
Yes.
and elementary, and I love that. I love that. Yeah, because if you're finding issues, you're finding holes that were missed early on. So go back and be a detective and go back to the basics, right?
Yeah.
And give them the opportunity to get it. So it's a great foundation. Many riders, especially backyard horse enthusiasts, get stuck at the intro or novice levels.
Right.
You've taken horses all the way to Grand Prix. What advice do you have for those riders to move past their plateau and unlock their horse's full potential?
Sure. Find someone that they can work with that's going to help them again work through those basics. But I find a lot of riders get stuck because either they are not understanding everything or they're wanting to progress sooner or think they're ready to progress. And again, that's where we end up in this little rabbit hole where we're missing pieces. So it could be that, and honestly, being an intro or training is fine. There are some people that's all they want to do, and that's fantastic. I mean, if I have a client and they just want to walk their horse, we can do so. You can train a horse to do almost everything just from the walk. So I think a lot of it, in my experience, when I've had people come, is just helping the rider understand also their body. We have to realize that how we sit, our asymmetries, our own, we have our emotional issues we come with. Maybe we had a bad day at work. We have our own physical tension that does translate to the horse. So it's understanding that the horse and the rider have to both be in a good place mentally and physically. And once we address whatever those issues are, then we can start to slowly make progress.
Makes perfect sense. Love that. Like, go do a meditation before you get out of your car.
I know, and I wish I could meditate. I haven't quite mastered that myself yet.
The best. It's the best. But
well, on that last question, I wanted to add too that, and it's perfectly fine, myself included, being professional. There are days, whether being my age, we all have our bodies are not the same, injuries. And it's absolutely perfectly fine. As so we go back to the groundwork. You don't have to ride your horse every day to train it. I mean, you can take your horse and just go for a hand walk, just spend time with them. And believe it or not, that will go a long way to building your relationship in the saddle. If you had a really stressful day at work, and this happens, especially as ladies, we're like, go, 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 type A sometimes. It's fine just to come groom your horse, maybe just do some basic relaxation and handwork. And then when you come the next day, you're going to find your ride is going to be even better. So that's perfectly fine. We don't always have to ride. We don't always have to do walk, trot, canter, and all the things.
Love it. I couldn't agree more. There are days when I get to, and it's like, you know what? I might tack you up and we may just hike out on our half. We're just going to and my horse like, this is cool, Mom. You're like, you're right. We're doing this together. And it feels so good. And then maybe halfway through the ride or whatever, I'm like, a tree stump. I'm ready now, right? All the crap that was cluttering my brain is gone. And I feel like I'm connected. And it's, again, I'm in my 60s now. We're not taking chances. I'm not, if I'm not emotionally and mentally where I should be, and feeling that connection, why risk it, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for that, for giving us permission that that's okay. Because some of us, I think, have this mindset of, I must be in the saddle and I must be progressing and hitting these milestones constantly. And sometimes
I was there when I was younger, being a young pro, I thought the same things. And, as we age, we get wiser. Too bad we're not wise when we're young, but that's not how it works usually. But I feel like as I've aged and my philosophy has changed, I feel like my connection with the horses, my training, everything is so much better than when I was young, feeling like I had to hit the milestones. Or my clients like, well, this horse needs to be doing first level, or this horse needs to be jumping. So a lot of times, I'm sure most pros would agree. Sit back and think, gosh, I wish I knew then or felt then what I know now, because I would have even helped that horse more. But that's life, right? That's anything in life.
Absolutely. I have those moments too. I almost shudder when I think back to, where I was and showing every weekend. And it was, I one time had a therapist ask me, do you enjoy anything? Like, do you like true, or is there, I'm like, I know, I'm always like running, I'm galloping towards a goal instead of sitting down and really enjoying the moment, which is so imperative. You've had the privilege of riding internationally, Val, and working with some of the best trainers in the world. What is one piece of advice from a mentor that's stuck with you and influenced how you train this to this day?
Okay, gosh, I have to think about that. There's been quite a few. I used to when I showed, and for me, I like showing, but it's not the end all. So this is one thing I kind of wanted to throw out there. Just because someone shows, it doesn't mean they're good or bad. And just because someone doesn't show, some of the best mentors I have had have never gone in the show ring. And to watch them ride, it was magical. So I just wanted to throw that out there too. So when I did show, being, a little nervous type gal, my one coach, I mean, I would be like a basket case. And he would just say to me, Val, ride your horse. Just ride your horse like you're at home. Don't worry about it. And once he said that, it was like this huge cloud and weight was lifted off of me. And I would just go in the ring and it was just my horse and I. And he would always say, like, you go in there and show off. But that was never my intention. I was just so in tune to my horse. And she was in tune to me that we just did our thing. And it was almost like I zoned out, like nobody else was there. So that was really helpful. And I guess the other things, kind of what we've already talked about, take time. Oh, this is another good thing for pros out there. So again, I would always ride all the training horses, get my client horses done. And sometimes at the end of the day, I had a huge farm. I'm crazy, did my own stalls, my own turnout and all of that most of the time. 7 o'clock at night, you're pretty fried. So I'm like, I'll ride mine tomorrow. So probably one of the best pieces of advice for pros out there, my coach always said, ride yours first, because he knew that I would definitely ride the client horses. So if I rode mine first, I would always make sure the client horses got ridden. But if I rode the client horses, my horses would go on the back burner. And I know a lot of us pros feel that way. And the other piece of advice, again, what we've talked about, I've had some great mentors. I've had centered riding mentors, some Western mentors, dressage. Take your time. Just take your time. Don't rush the horse, and everything will go where you want it to go.
Sage advice. Thank you. There's been a lot of debate around modern dressage and whether it's become.
That's okay. That's okay. I have thoughts for sure.
I won't get specific. And whether it's, I'm going to rephrase this again. There's been a lot of debate around modern dressage and whether it's become too mechanical and competitive.
Yes.
How do you keep your training classical, rooted in the horse's natural movements, while also preparing horses for the demands of high-level competition?
Okay. So again, going back to all of the things I said before with the groundwork, for me, it's really important that my horses have a say. One coach that I worked with, I love this. I was riding my young mare in a class and she had just a playful moment where she kind of put her head down. It wasn't a buck, but they put their head down and kind of go like that. And he was an international coach and he goes, I love that. He goes, it shows that the horse has feeling. She's feeling good. She's playful. So I have really gone back. I ride without flashes at home most of the time, no noseband. And even when I was showing, the TDs would say it's so nice to see a horse's mouth not clamped shut. So for me, that was a barometer of my quality, because it's our quality of the connection. So if my horse is running around with her mouth gaping open or flipping her head, is there a physical issue? First, I rule that out, but is it something I'm doing? So for me, that's how I stay classical. I study. My husband, he laughs at me. He goes, Val, horses 24/7. I get in the house at night, I'm studying, I'm reading, goes, you've been out there all day, 24/7. I'm like, well, that's what I do. That's what I love. So I always go back to like the masters, and not that they were perfect, but they did a lot of the things more classically than what we're seeing. So it's just always studying, checking in. Again, going back to what we said, checking in with my horse. Is my horse getting tense? Are they nervous? Are they frustrated with the exercise? If so, I need to think why and step back. It's like we're problem solving all the time, but it's really important to check in. So just an example, my mare. So I've trained a Grand Prix. I've not made it to the ring yet. I've had bad luck. EPM, this is my third one now with EPM.
Oh.
So would I love to get to the ring? For sure. Am I going to compromise this horse's health mentally and physically to do that? Absolutely not. And then my prior horse, who my coach said, you're ready, same thing. He had EPM, but I just wasn't willing to compromise his health and safety to get a score. Not saying I don't want to. So I don't know if that answered your question, but for me, always putting the horse's health first. And I'm not saying being competitive and internationally riding and what we see is bad. It's just people have different goals. And for me, the horse is the goal first. I got into this because I love them. I absolutely love the horse. If you told me tomorrow I could never show again, great. I'm still going to love my horse. I'm still going to train. I'm still going to do dressage. I'm going to try to train to the highest levels, but it's all about the horse for me.
Clearly, it's legit. I can definitely sense that from you, and I thank you for that. Now let's talk about fear, Val.
Okay.
So many riders deal with fear after a fall or a bad experience. And as someone like you who works with riders at all levels, how do you help them rebuild their confidence and trust in themselves and their horses after a bad experience?
And another really good question. So this happened to me. So again, when I was younger, I rode everything. I mean, I was fearless, buck, bolt, rear, I didn't care. So as I'm getting older, it's a hard pill to swallow. But anyway, in 3 years, I had 3 really significant injuries. So in 2019, I came off, it was just a freak thing. Again, darn EPM, my young stallion, broke my hip. So that laid me up for 6 months. And then I had a horse just trip, a big draft horse, and fall on me. Luckily, nothing was broken, but a lot of soft tissue damage. And then I came off again, just freak things, had fractured my sacrum. So I get the fear. So for me, those things really helped me more understand the client's fear. And I'm not afraid of falling off. It's the getting hurt because this is my livelihood. But when I had to come back, it's a huge psychological thing because it's hard. You have to shut it off, but your brain's like, what if you're going to come off? What happens? What happens? What happens? So the first time I got back on, I rode my best, quietest lesson pony. Just rode him bareback. I mean, that horse wouldn't do anything if you put a firecracker in his ear. And that helped me get confidence. And for my clients, the same thing. If they come to the barn, I've had people that have literally broken down in tears and said, I don't want to get on. Great. And this is another thing where the groundwork, I can show them things to do on the ground, how to help get the confidence, how to get your horse relaxed. And through that groundwork, oftentimes they start to feel that, okay, the horse isn't nervous, and then they're able to get on. A lot of times, and I'll admit when I was younger, I did push people sometimes too. They'll push them to get on and say, all right, well, just do it. You're fine. But you can't do that. You have to allow the person, the rider, to do it in their own time. Because if someone's afraid, yelling at them, shouting at them, beating them, hitting them is not going to help. It's going to make them more fearful. Just like if your horse is spooking, kicking it, spurring it, yelling at it, you're punishing the horse for being legitimately afraid. So I really think you have to take the time. And it doesn't matter if it takes someone 2 years. I had a client many years ago, came off and quite a bit older, and all she wanted to do was walk. Fine. It's your horse. It's your life. It's your hobby. If that's what you want to do, fine. I'm happy to teach anybody to do anything that they want.
Nice. I like that a lot. I really do. I have a mentor and a friend, a trainer, same thing. There were times where I, get to my lesson and say, I can't, today's not. And we would just sit and talk.
Yes. Oh yeah, that too. Yeah.
And you trust someone when you know that they're hearing you. Right. So if Val says, okay, I think you are ready for, you know what I mean? You're going to trust them more because you know that in the past that person has said, no, you shouldn't. You absolutely follow your gut, and you're reading them and you're reading them well and you're hearing them, it's like forcing a horse to, no, we're going to ride into the fire. And they're going, no, I'm really, oh my God, you're not a leader I can trust. You're afraid of that. And you're beating the crap out of me to get me to go through it.
Right.
You never partner with, yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, Val, we made it to our final question.
Okay.
Before I ask that, is there anything that I have not touched on that you hope that I would for our audience?
No, I think you've done great. You've covered a lot of good things and things that I'm really happy to talk about because I think it's really important. I think a lot of the things we've discussed people might be afraid to ask, or clients might be afraid. So I think it's really, really good, perfect questions. Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, I think it's going to resonate with a lot of our viewers. And if anyone wants to reach out to Valerie, if you look above her head, you'll see a QR code that you can find her website. If you're, right? Do you do any like online webinars or? Perfect.
Yeah, not webinars per se. So again, right, I'm not a tech person, so I'm in the process of trying to make kind of an online, but it's not going to be like what we see, where you watch videos. It's just more of an online teaching. So I do a lot of virtual lessons. People, again, I offer, if you just want to call me and talk, if you're saying this is what happened today, we can talk theory, or like you said, if someone is struggling, that could be our lesson. We just have a conversation. I do virtual lessons, so we can do, I teach those all over the world. So if you want to do a virtual lesson, we can do that. If you want to send me a video, I'm just really flexible because everyone has different needs. And I'm just really happy to accommodate what every person needs, if it's groundwork, whatever it might be.
Oh, I love that you have that to offer. So again, to our viewers, just click on that QR code. It'll bring you out to Val's website, and you'll find a way to contact her. And also to our viewers, if there's any questions you hoped I would ask Valerie, please put them in the comments. And, we can always do a second part down the road if Valerie is willing. We would love to have you back. So finally, Valerie, we're at our last question. What does success look like to you? Is it a Grand Prix ribbon, a perfectly fitted saddle, a quiet moment of connection with a horse, or is it all of the above?
Great question. So when I was younger, right, success meant Grand Prix. I'm riding Grand Prix, I'm showing, I'm out there. Again, as I've gotten older, as my time with the horses, and my training and my philosophy have changed, success can be different for everyone. So to me, success is developing and having healthy, happy horses from the way I train them. Whether we make to the show ring, great. My horses, I trail ride them. I believe in cross training. So success is a happy, healthy partner.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Valerie, for being a guest on our show. We appreciate all this valuable information that you've shared with us, and we hope you come back in the future.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.